I lived in a co-living in Los Angeles for about a year and a half, and this is my experience. There's two different types of co-living. There is co-living where it's like communal spaces, which is the one I did, which you share a bedroom with people and you have like your own area. So I had like a little pod to myself, and then there was a lot of shared spaces. So there was like a gym and like a couple living rooms and a kitchen and like a workspace and all these different areas that we shared. There's also co-living that is co-living apartments where you can sign your own lease for like a 3-bedroom apartment and then they'll fill the spots. But then you could also be on different leases and it doesn't matter. So if you're wanting to leave it or only do a 3-month lease, you don't have to be liable or responsible for the other people who are housing that. So yeah, I did share my bedroom. At the most, there were 8 girls in my room. At the least, there were 2 of us. So it's like a wood box, kind of like a coffin, but that doesn't sound appealing, so we won't say that. But yeah, so it like is a wood box basically with a mattress in it. It had like 2 little shelves that I put my stuff on, and then it had like a little blackout curtain at the end. And I honestly loved my pod. I slept really well. They're definitely not soundproof because they don't like fully shut, but you also get like a little fan in there. And then there's like normally a bottom and like a top. So there's like, I was a bottom bunk and then like there was somebody on top of me. And honestly, occasionally like I could hear them moving, but otherwise it was pretty chill. So I'm definitely bottom bunk over top bunk. Let's talk about the pros of co-living. In my experience, I wrote a list down, so I might be peering over this way a bit. The cleaning crew. The place that I stayed at had a cleaning crew, and it was like 3 or 4 days a week, and they would clean just communal spaces. So they would clean bathrooms, kitchen, living room, and like the other shared spaces, which was amazing. So it was pretty clean. Obviously because there's so much foot traffic, I mean, the house that I lived in could hold up to 60 people. So because there's so much foot traffic, it does get a little bit dirty at times, and I would always wear like house shoes and stuff, just because I didn't like to get my feet or my socks dirty. Another perk is community. So if you're moving somewhere new or you're staying somewhere short term, it's a really great way to meet people. There were a lot of different people in the house who were only staying for like a month or 2, or like just came for the summer or came for the semester or were studying abroad, or just had moved to the city. So it's a really great way to meet people, because I think it is hard to meet people once you move somewhere new, especially in Los Angeles. So it was a really great way to make friends and be around people all the time, which was really nice. And it was also great because you never really felt alone. Like there were times that I would like just go up to my pod and hang out, but it was nice to know that like there was people around. And it's also just really great sometimes to like come home and like talk to people about your day and what you're doing and all that stuff. I think is really fun. Also nice, they paid for utilities. So like toilet paper, paper towels, olive oil, soap, like that kind of stuff was all paid for by the house. So we were only responsible for like our rent, but like also we had like subscriptions to like everything, so you could watch literally any show you wanted. And like obviously internet and that kind of stuff. And then too, it was great when something would break, you would just like message, hey, this thing's broken, and they would have like a maintenance person come by. They had like a maintenance person for the whole building, and then we're pretty good at like if like the laundry machine broke or something, somebody would come, and then like there was a hot tub on the roof, somebody would take care of it and stuff. So that was nice, because I hate dealing with that kind of stuff. So it was really nice to have people who were designated to fix those things and get it figured out. So the communal spaces were awesome. So you have quite a different array of spaces, which was nice. So if you did want to get away and kind of get some quiet time, you definitely could. But you would always have to be open to the fact that like somebody would probably be around. I would say they're the busiest around summertime. It does quiet down in the fall. You do get more people in the spring as well, but because really the only space that's like yours is your pod. Yeah, another note, the pod's comfy. As I said, I love my pod. Like I will tell you, I slept so good. I also can sleep through a lot of stuff though. I'm not like a light sleeper. So if you are a light sleeper, it will take some adjusting. But yeah, I can sleep through anything, baby. Let me tell you. But it's also cool. The ones that we had too had like the little LED lights in them, so you could change the color, and it was like super nice and like soothing. There was also always house activities. So there was either things of like yoga classes or like painting something, or like when a holiday would come around, there'd be something, or especially over the summer, there was like family dinners and like all this stuff, which is really great. So it was a great way to just like be around people and do activities. I sometimes participated and then sometimes didn't, depended on my mood. But it was nice to have that option of like just like hanging out with people and getting to know them, and it's really cool. I thought that was awesome. This is also a funny pro, but I would always have like random food items, and sometimes I'd be like, dang, like I'm out of eggs, I need eggs. And it was really fun. We'd like trade food and stuff. I'd be like, I'll give you this for this, or like I'll Venmo you a couple bucks for this. That came in handy quite a few times, I will say. And especially when you're like friends with people in the house and you can like share foods, and also sometimes people eat like weird interesting things and you can try things and you see them cook something and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. So it is really cool for that reason. I really did enjoy it as well. That was kind of like my funny add-on. But let's talk about the cons now, shall we? That's probably the juiciest part of this. Okay, the first one for me that got was like bathrooms are interesting. So I had a bathroom. There was a bathroom in my room, and then there was also like an everyone bathroom basically like on the main floor. I did not go number 2 in our bathroom upstairs. And honestly, I didn't really when there were other people in the room. That was just like a personal thing that I didn't do. I mean, you definitely could, like there was nothing wrong with that. We actually ended up investing into really good poop spray, mahogany teakwood, I believe, from Bath and Body Works. I would tell you, that's the best spray. If you live in co-living, get that spray. I would tell you it's game changing. You can't smell it and then it smells nice. You're like, someone poop, but like, yum. So yeah, I would definitely say it took me a while to be comfortable, like, just with a ton of people, but you grow into that and it's like fine. And it was always nice to have like another bathroom to go to if like somebody was showering or using our bathroom. It depends on also like the space you're living in, because you're like, oh, like what's the bathroom situation was probably the question I was anticipating in my head. And it depended too on the room. Like one room had a separate section for the bathroom compared to like the sinks and the shower. So you could literally have somebody showering, 2 people using the sink and somebody going to the bathroom. And then our room didn't have that. We just had like our bathroom was all in one. So like really one person would use it. Sometimes you'd shower and somebody would use the bathroom if you were like comfortable enough, but you could literally just have it yourself, which was fine. So I always loved, because sometimes in the mornings, if some people were using the bathroom and I really had to go to the bathroom, I would run downstairs and pee, or do whatever. But yeah, so I would do that quite a few mornings, I would say, but that was when like the room was more full. So, but you kind of just learn, you get used to it, and you figure it out. But it is not as convenient as having your own bathroom, but it's fine. It's honestly pretty functional. And as long as you communicate with people too, that's what we did, and be like, hey, like what time do you normally get up? What time do you go to bed? When do you like to shower? And so then it was easy, and like, oh, what's your work schedule? And then it was kind of easy to figure out like when there were holes of stuff. Like one of the other girls that I lived with for a little while, her and I had like the same schedule. So that was a little bit interesting to like figure that out for us. But then it was really nice because there's one point where I was the only one that had like a later schedule than everybody else. So I never had issues with morning stuff. But if you are somebody that has like more of a traditional schedule or like early mornings, anticipate some kind of like figuring out with the other people who are in the room as well. So that's like the only thing I would say. And I would normally then like change my I would have to get up a little bit earlier and stuff like that to make sure I wasn't like late to whatever I was doing. Also too, like changing is something you learn. So we also had like a separate room of like the lockers where we would put all our stuff, and like predominantly people would change in there, but also you would like change in your room sometimes, or the bathroom. So that's just something you kind of get comfortable with. Also too, because it is such a like you just see every type of person in that space, or just like different nationalities and stuff. Some people like nudity is not an issue, or like they don't care at all. And like I think especially in like the US we care a little bit more than most countries do. And so I found that was kind of interesting, where like some people just like wouldn't care. And you start to like, once you get comfortable with your roommates, like it was definitely like, oh, I'm not just gonna like be completely naked right now for me personally, but it was like, oh, I would like change my top here and there, like my bottoms if I have to or whatever. But I would prioritize, like if I could go into the locker room I would, or if I was going into the bathroom I would, but especially with like the locker room, I guess we were gonna call it, a lot of people would be changing, so it really wasn't an issue. And you didn't normally run into people too many times. Sometimes you did, but if like the door was locked or like closed, somebody would like knock on it and that kind of stuff. So it was really respectful overall. But that was definitely something to get used to, I will say. It definitely was funny when you're like, I want to change, where do I change? But yeah, at some point you're just kind of like, and then it's funny when like new people come in, because you're just like changing, and you're like, I know it's kind of weird, but whatever, I gotta change, you know? So that's kind of funny. I would also say something that can be a con is different personalities, or different types of people. I'm pretty easygoing overall, but I did see like some people who had some rifts with each other and that kind of stuff, just because they were completely different. Really with co-living, it puts you in a situation where you're with a lot of different types of people. And so because of that, like communication's important, not getting irritated or annoyed by things easily, or like grow to anger pretty quickly is really important in those kind of environments, because it is easy to do that. So I would say that's something that I feel like I have gotten better at, even of just like understanding and communicating and that kind of stuff, because it can be annoying and frustrating at times to live with people that like are very different than you. But you know, you live, you learn. I know there were some people who like didn't like each other. And there are some people like I just didn't like. There are people I love, there are people I really like. But it depends too, because you can't like know exactly who you're gonna live with, right? Like, because there was one summer when I lived there and it was like we were all friends, and there was like the next summer that was not the case. So it just depends too on like who's interested in co-living at what time. And they do background checks and like interview people, and they try and see like where the best fit is. The place that I lived at too had a couple different houses, and so depending on depending on personalities and stuff, they would kind of place people depending on where they think they would fit best, which I appreciated, because then it was like our house went a bit smoother when that intention was put on it. So I did really appreciate that they did. That's a pro to a con. There we go. And then time alone is also hard. The pod is like the only space in the house that you can guarantee you'll always be alone in. But then also too, like there's other people in the room and that kind of stuff. So it was nice. A lot of people, to include myself, would like hang out in our car. Sometimes if you're just like, I need some time, or like I want to take a call, that kind of stuff. But you could do any of that stuff anywhere. It just depends on like if you want it to be private or not. Just because you can't guarantee going into a space and being alone. There are a lot of opportunities of that though, where you could go into something like, I remember I would go into the workspace quite a few times and like nobody would be there, like up on the roof, or like, there's always an option of a space, and sometimes you can get that alone time. But if you're like someone who likes to be alone a lot, co-living is definitely not for you. Another thing is you can't have overnight guests. You can't though, but so like for me, that really was like where if like my friends came to town, like I'm like, you can't stay with me kind of stuff. Also too, like if you have like a friend, they can't, like for the most part, that is like a pretty important thing, and that was a reason some people would get kicked out. So like obviously, like as I'm saying, like it's a rule, but like not everybody follows it. But be careful with that one. That one will like get you kicked out, not allowed back kind of thing. Also too, depending on what co-living, some co-livings have like alcohol rules. Ours for a while had like a no alcohol rule, which wasn't pleasant at times. But if you also just were smart about it and like put it in a different cup or something like that, you definitely could. It was really funny once I started living like in a normal house again, and like there was alcohol in the fridge, and I was like, and then I was like, oh my god, yeah, like everybody can normally have alcohol. So some places have that rule, not all places do. I know places that are like apartment co-living don't have rules like that. It's just the ones that are like actually like co-living. Also, having a timely routine is a bit difficult. If you're someone that likes to do stuff at an exactly certain time every day, whatever, is a bit tricky, especially when you're navigating like bathrooms and kitchen. That's something that I would say like you probably need to like, you'll either need to like learn to be flexible with, or if that's something that you're like super concrete about, you can't do. Sorry, my leg's falling asleep. But I would say if you can still have routine though. I would just say like if it's exactly like 7:30, I make dinner, like, yeah, but some days won't be like that. And that is something like the kitchen is probably one of the only places that actually gets a little bit busy sometimes. It depends though, like I don't cook a lot, so it was fine. And then when I would cook, it'd be like weird times. But yeah, navigating the kitchen is interesting. Honestly, we didn't have too many problems with that though. There'd be a couple people, like I remember I'd like be trying to use something and they'd be trying to use something. I don't know. People are pretty respectful and communicate. I just learned, I was like, I'll just eat when people aren't there, or like when there's less people. So if you do like prime dinner times, you'll see a lot of people. But also too, you gotta think, honestly, not a lot of people have the same schedule as you. It's super crazy. Like I lived in a house of so many people, and half the time like I wouldn't see everybody. Normally there's like a couple people you'd see, or you'd have a similar like rotation with, where like you guys would have similar lifestyles. But honestly, there are some people that I lived with that I literally wouldn't ever see. So it is really crazy. And people, have crazy different jobs or stuff like that. And a lot of times people who live in those situations aren't home that much or things like that. Because we had some people who worked in like healthcare and stuff and would be on for so many days and then off. And then some people have like relationships, so they'd go over to their partner's house. So not everybody's actually home all the time, and they're normally out doing stuff. Yes, it can get busy, but also not everybody has the same schedule as you. It's so mind-blowing, like to be in that circumstance and be like, 30 people live here and I literally see 5 of them. Like there were points in time where I only saw about 5 people and I was home, I would say, pretty frequently. There are also, normally in these co-living situations, there are quite a bit of rules. I would look through the rules before you move in, like see if it aligns with you, because a lot of times those things will end up becoming issues or reasons you get kicked out. And some of them are a little ridiculous. Sometimes you'll be like, that's a weird rule. And you just kind of gotta go along with it. One of the rules was like you couldn't sleep on the couch, which was drama. And like majority of us were like, we don't really care. But it was more so for like cleaning people and like sanitary reasons and like all that stuff. So some of the stuff is kind of weird, but like there's a reason behind it. So if you're not cool with like going along with unconventional rules, maybe don't do it. Some of them though were like, I don't know, like you could definitely interpret are like situational, and some of them like are taken more seriously. So I would also say that like not all of those things are also super big, but like I would say like if you can go along with all those things, co-living should be fine for you. I feel like in co-living situations, like honestly, you'll never find perfect management, because it's an interesting world. And so it's like, that's something that I put as a con. I don't know why, I don't remember why, but I know for other people management was an issue, whether they're like not timely enough or figuring out a solution or whatever. I honestly don't think in that environment you can please everybody and it's going to function properly. It is like and I think maybe like down the line that'll change. But I've heard from most co-living places that there's always some type of issue. But honestly, like there's issues everywhere, right? Like you live in a home or like your homeowner says something, or like the apartment complex. So I would say it's in line with everything else, but sometimes it is interesting. I would say honestly, like the people who worked in our house and tried to make our house work overall would do things in a timely manner. Like if, you know, the laundry machine broke, or like we had like the one of the fridges broke one time, and they had a new fridge within like the next couple, like a day or something. So yeah, I would say some of that stuff overall was great. I mean, probably better than I would have been at figuring it out. And I didn't even have to do anything. So I remember one time too, we did have like the water, it was cold water. They ended up giving us a reduction though on the rent that month, which was kind of nice. Because I think it was like 6 or 7 days where like the water heater went out or something. So it is interesting, especially like with traditional housing being turned into co-living spaces, because a lot of times that house is built for like a family of 6, and then you have like 60 people living in a house, and so the wear and tear on stuff is gonna be drastically different than if a family of 6 lived there. You also got to think about. So it is also, it makes sense. It's just one of those things. So, but overall, I would say it was a fun experience. I'm not saying that was happening all the time. Those are just some things that I remember. And it's also because I lived there for so long that I experienced those things. Oh, also some of the co-living places have cameras in shared spaces, not in like bathrooms, changing rooms, or bedrooms. But that was also something that like is fine. Like I don't mind, because I think it's there for like safety precautions, and like if someone says something, they can have kind of like, I think it's a good thing to have. But it is something that's interesting and like weird to get used to, because you're like, there's a camera right there at all times, and a lot of them could hear us and that kind of stuff. And I remember, yeah, I just think that's a little interesting. Overall though, it's there to like maintain the house, and then like if something happens, there's like, they can be like, oh, they didn't actually say that, or that didn't actually happen, or I don't know. But that is interesting. I would say that's interesting. Again, I don't know if all communal spaces, I think all the ones under like the branch that I was living in did have cameras in their spaces. Oh, so also a big con is there's not a lot of space for your things. Don't bring a lot of things. They're very hard to find places for. Yeah, you literally have like a little locker space to fit your clothes. I'm surprised at how much I was able to fit. At times I got creative, like I put like additional bins in my little pod, and then I really did store and make sense of my locker. So you definitely can make it work, but it's tricky. And I definitely had like a stockpile of stuff in your car, in your car, my car. So yeah, that's definitely tricky. So if you want to buy things, like figuring out where they go, and that was a whole mess in and of itself. So you definitely have to be like minimalist minded once you go into a space like that, or just pick like your favorites of things, because it is very tricky to maneuver, but you can definitely do it. It's not impossible. Okay, a con that I had was when you make friends and they leave, it's sad. Sometimes too, people were like international, so you're like, you'd live with them for 3 months and they're like going to a different country, and yes, I could see them again, but like it's not as convenient as living down the street or living with them. So that was always sad. Or I had some friends, obviously when you live with a group of people, you're gonna see them way more often than if they lived somewhere else. So even people who move down the street, like I wouldn't see as often, which makes sense because like we share all these spaces together and now we live somewhere different. But that was always sad when people would leave and like the space would change because it does shift the energy in the space as well. So that was definitely something that sometimes you'd be like, I miss this person. They were really cool. Rip. Too, some of the spaces were weird about like moving furniture, like adding your own things. You can't add decor to like normal, like a lot of the spaces. Sometimes we'd have like holiday decor and stuff like that, but you can't like put a chair in the living room and like weird things like that. And there was a person for a while actually that was like on like controlling like how it looked and stuff like that. So like if you move something, they'd move back or like they take it away or like whatever, which was weird. So yeah, that's one of the things too of like you can't, we did actually move the couches at one point, but they only kept it for a couple months and they moved it back. So even things like that, like they're very particular about. I don't mind though, because then like I don't have to worry about furniture. I don't have to do any of that stuff for the whole house. So my house could fit 60 people. There were 3 fridges and then like everybody got like their own shelf or like a little bin. Yeah, it's difficult. It's tricky. And then we had like storage bins as well in the pantry and we each had like a shelf or like half a shelf or something. And normally the nice thing was like once you lived there after a while, then you could, like if someone moved out and you liked their space, you could like probably take their space and then like your space would be the new available one, which is kind of nice. So the more I lived there, like the better some of my storage got. But yeah, you definitely like even in the fridge, like I had a shelf that I couldn't put tall things. I'd always have to like lay them down and stuff like that. So it was definitely interesting. Sometimes two people would be like, hey, can I put this on your shelf if that's okay? And like, I don't know, they'd always communicate though, but yeah, that was definitely interesting. And you'd see like some people's stuff is like piled on top of each other, which makes sense because it's hard to store that stuff. With things getting like lost and stolen, I never had anything stolen. Normally though, overall in LA, there is like, you have like people steal bikes a lot, and especially they target communal living because they figure a lot of people are like living unconventionally. But other than that, like inside the house, I didn't have any issues with that. Yeah, I can't even think of like an instance where like somebody else had that as well. I mean, your stuff's like in the lockers and stuff. They're like they're like locked in there. There was rules where like you couldn't leave your stuff around. So if I lost a pair of my shoes actually for like a couple months. I had no clue where they went, and they ended up being in the lost and found. So there was somebody who like managed our house, and so if something was somewhere for too long, they would like take it. So yeah, I did have that one time, I remember. But other than that, no. And also because the cleaning people come like so early, they would come at like 5 or 6 a.m. If they found anything in spaces, they would like put it there. But that's the only time I had an issue with that. Otherwise it was fine. So that's kind of an introduction to my co-living. If you have any other questions about it, please let me know. I am also planning on doing some other videos on this topic just because I had a lot of questions before I was living there, and I think it's like super fascinating too if you're not looking to live, you're just curious. So let me know if you have any additional questions though down below, and I will answer it, and then like look forward for any other videos relating to co-living. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great night or evening. I will see you in the next video. Deuces!